So now that we've aligned on how we've structured the Escala course into 7 different modules that essentially walk you through the 3 phases of business systemization, I want us to align on something else, which is what actually is a business system. Now, it's going to be a buzzword that we're going to use a lot throughout the Escala course, whether it's business system or systemization, and I want to be aligned on what that actually means. Now, a lot of entrepreneurs these days are using lean methodology. There's an amazing book that I highly recommend called The Lean Startup. And in here, it defines a business system as something that is designed to connect all of an organization's intricate parts and interrelated steps to work together for the achievement of a business strategy. In Escala, and for the purpose of this course, we're going to simplify that down even more. I think that's an awesome definition, but I want to simplify it down even more to the foundational combination of people, process, and technology, which work interdependently to support a business in reaching its goal. So let's just make it as simple as possible and say that when we say business system, we mean the way that your people, process, and technology work together. So I hope that we're aligned on that. And let's dive into it a bit deeper to actually understand what exactly do we mean when we say people, what exactly do we mean when we say process, and what exactly do we mean when we say technology. So I've pulled up the Escala definitions for the 3 components of a business system. For total transparency, we actually use these definitions when we give our clients in Escala engagements their maturity assessment framework, which was something that we've built and tinkered with over the past 3 years. It's a way that we benchmark Escala businesses against similar businesses that are of similar size and revenue levels. And we basically give them a score for their readiness for scale. So let's say we give someone a 1.5 out of 5 for their people. It's not a performance review on their people. It's more, you have structured your people in a way that is set up for scale poorly, and we want to define this a little better so that it becomes more mature and it's not going to be a bottleneck for scale. So the reason I bring that up, we're not actually going to use the Escala maturity framework for the Escala course. The reason being that it's not very DIY friendly. It's quite a convoluted system that we've built, and it just wouldn't make sense to put it in the course. But I bring that up to say that these definitions are really what we look out for when it comes to, is this component of your business actually ready for scale? This is what we're looking for. And I think this is what you should be looking for when it comes to assessing your own 3 components of the business system. So when it comes to people, what you should be thinking about is, how is the organization structured to meet the goals? So that's one thing. And the second thing is, how are skills and capabilities matched with business needs? So there's the structure of the organization. You could have the best people just in a poor structure. And we'll talk about later how to actually identify that and fix that. And then the second thing is more of an assessment on the readiness of the people to actually hit the business goals that you've set for your business. So if you want to launch 15 new products, but you just don't have product launch specialist or product research specialist, then then the people component is going to be quite lagging. When it comes to process, what we're looking for is, again, 2 different things: how activities are organized into processes. So that touches more on the documentation component, and the simplicity component, the clarity component. Are the tasks in your organization extremely complex and convoluted when they don't need to be, or is everything kind of simple and well structured? And then the second thing is, how effectively are those processes executed? So there's, again, 2 components. The first one being how the processes are organized. The second one being how they're actually executed. And you might have well-defined SOPs that no one follows. And at the same time, you might have really well-followed SOPs that aren't documented. It's just everyone kind of knows the business's way of doing specific tasks. And then finally, technology. So how tools are utilized to enable efficient execution of processes. So basically, is your technology making you a more efficient business? Are you executing on process in a more efficient way because of the technology you use? And secondly, and how technology is used to collect and organize data and enhance decision-making processes. So the second component of that is technology enhancing your data-driven decision-making, or are you not even really considering technology and it's all kind of gut feel? So is technology making you a more data-driven organization? So to understand these even more, what I want to look at is the inverse. What happens when one component of your business system is not operating well? So let's take, for example, people. What will you find? And I don't want to call it failure necessarily. I want to call it growing pains, because everyone goes through these pains, and how you push through them is what really defines you as a business. But I want to help you identify a symptom of which of the three components of my business system are not working. It might be more than one, but let's just say we isolated one. Only your people aren't working, but your technology and your process is great. How would you identify that? So that's what we're going to look at now. So for people, there's going to be a heavy dependence on founders. Now, my guess would be that this would characterize a lot of your businesses. A lot of Amazon brands that we look at, all the way up to 7 figures. So 4, 5, 6, 7 figures are extremely dependent on the founders, or maybe the founder and the early employee. And pretty much all of the strategic decision-making, all of the growth is generated from 1 or 2 people in the organization. Now, that is natural when you're a startup, because you start off with 1 or 2 people, and it's just natural that it's hard to relinquish control. But we got to think of it in the context of we're building for an 8 or 9 figure organization, and an 8 and 9 figure business does not rely on 1 or 2 people to make all of the key decisions. You still have a strategic direction that is dictated by the CEO or the founder or whatever it is, but you also have dependency on your internal team members to innovate, to create. It can't all come down to one person. And the businesses that I'm talking about that we see a lot of are the businesses where there's one founder and about 5 or 6 VAs, which is a word we don't like to use, but is used often in the industry. Those are the types of businesses that I'm talking about, that sooner or later you're going to get to a point where one person simply can't generate all the growth, and there needs to be a democratization of the creativity and innovation in the business to sustain to reach the next level of growth. So that dependence on the founders at some point becomes an inhibitor and actually slows down the growth of the business. The second is that people are assigned tasks rather than responsibilities. So again, this is a characterization of a young business that your first employee, or let's say VA, there's just too much for you to do. So you hire someone to help you do some of the things you do. That's okay. But essentially, when we continue to grow, what we want is to have people around us who we are able to delegate outcomes to. So we say we want our ACOS to go down from 30 to 25%, or we want to launch 5 new products next year instead of 3 products, which we launched this year. We want to be able to assign responsibility like that, rather than delegating tasks, which would be go into Helium 10 and do product research and come back to me with 3 different products. That is a short-term solution to delegation. And it's not actually going to free up your focus. It might free up some of your time, but you're always going to be so closely linked to the successful outcome that it doesn't actually free you up. So that's another component of like where your people might be lagging if you can't actually delegate ownership. And third is that key people wear multiple hats. Again, this is going to be okay. There's always going to be a few people in the business who have widespread accountability, but you want most people in the business to be very focused. If you have the CFO who is also your product researcher, eventually that person is going to be spread too thin, and they're not going to be able to actually innovate in one of those categories because their bandwidth is just too drained. So you want to get to a point where as many people as possible are focused in your organization, and as you grow, you're actually removing hats from people instead of adding hats to people. So let's move on to process. A sign that your process might be experiencing growing pains and is sort of lagging behind when it comes to your system, your wider business system, is that there is little to no SOP documentation. So I think a lot of you might be in this boat, and that's why you're actually completing the course. That's totally okay. But SOP documentation provides a lot of visibility and accountability within the organization without the need to micromanage. It allows you to hire really quickly, which is a huge advantage of SOPs, and just creates a lot of alignment. Employees know what's expected of me, what is the current state. Next is that there's too many or too few meetings. So too many meetings is often a case of meetings just compensating for well-defined process, which is something we want to avoid. And too few meetings might just be a case of there's no process at all, so there's not really any reason to meet. Everyone's kind of just doing their own thing in their own way. So that might be a sign that process is not really working. However, there are some organizations that thrive without many meetings, and I guess that you could consider that a goal of yours, and that would be pretty respectable to achieve as well. The final thing, and this is a really important thing when it comes to process, is that the canary in the gold mine for process being a lagging component of your system is that you'll see that in handovers. Handovers are going to be the first place where you notice that your business systems are not actually very well organized. The reason being that the way different departments interact with each other is typically the first place where you really need process. Because, if you just have two team members who are working on the same thing day in, day out, they might not need process because they're always communicating. But if you have your product research and development team, getting everything ready for the product and getting it to product launch, and then you have your product launch team who are actually taking it from there, they're being handed over the baton and then they're taking it from there. You need those two teams to have process of what a handover there looks like. Because if you don't, you're going to be doing a lot of duplicated work. You're going to be wasting a lot of resources. A really structured handover is where the product launch team can actually leverage the work that the product research and development team have done. But very often we see that, especially early on in a business, handovers are the area where either things fall between the cracks or we just need to have way too many meetings to compensate for a lack of process. So that's where we generally see a lagging process, and that's sort of a symbol to us that we need to actually go and invest in documenting process. When it comes to technology, some things about technology that might help us understand that our technology kind of needs to be revamped is that we're using tools that don't actually fit the business needs. We heard about a cool tool at a conference, but it's not actually helping us. The main one that we see is that there's just too many spreadsheets. Businesses use a spreadsheet for every single process that they have. A lot of businesses that we work with come to us and they have someone in the business whose role it is to actually maintain spreadsheets, instead of just using bespoke technology that's actually going to really, increase their efficiency by crazy amounts. And then finally, that they just have multiple avenues for task management. We kind of want to use technology to centralize task management. If you have one department using Google Sheets, one department using Asana, one department using ClickUp, that might be a sign that your technology is kind of failing you and you need to invest in really understanding how you can improve your technology. So in this video, I hope that we've helped define what people are, what process is, and what technology is, and how they combine to actually create your business system. We also went through what happens when one of them fails and how you can actually identify that. And this is going to be really important in the design phase because we're going to reference this type of material a lot. We're going to say, is that a people problem or a process problem? So if you're not totally aligned on this video, I recommend rewatching it because we're going to start referencing it back, especially as we get to the design phase. So I hope that this was clear, and we're going to be able to use this as a foundation for really taking our business from the current state to the future state.